Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Historia Politica Publica. In the episode of today, I will talk about Fahrenheit 451, a book that was published by Ray Bradbury in 1953. There was a movie in 1966 and other more recent in 2018. This book is a dystopian in which the author explores how mass media reduces interest in reading, the threat of burning books, which according to the author, he drew inspiration from Nazi Germany mainly, but also from the USA in the 1950s. This book is set in the context of the Cold War. McCarthyism has a great influence in the Hollywood industry. Remember, McCarthyism, it refers to the trend carried by Senator McCarthy, in which all the people working in Hollywood, like directors, actresses, actors, were scrutinized if they were believed to have communist sympathies or to be member of a union, communist union, and so on. One of the most famous episodes is with Donald Trump, the producer of incredible movies such as Spartacus and also others like in which he created the screenplay and so on. So this is a very important moment in US history. Also, there is a threat of an atomic war, which is hugely explored in Fahrenheit 451. In the book, we are in a distant future. The year is never specified, but still we can see how the technology are so advanced. People are most of the time in their house because in the walls of their houses they have screens in which they can see the different TV shows that are going during the whole day. There is a kind of mechanism in which if you pay an amount of money, you will be part of that TV show in the way that the characters that appears in your walls will tell your name and will make you to be part of that engagement. This is very fundamental because while mass media has increased and almost everybody spends the whole day watching TV, there are not many books in the country because there is a group of people which are called the firemen, which their main job is to burn the books that are in people's houses. You can imagine that obviously there are people who are hiding books, and yet there is this kind of fear among the population which is making very difficult to say openly that you have books. And this is one of the most important aspects of this dictatorship. One of the, I think, most interesting characters is Beatty, which is the chief of the firemen. He works with Montag. Montag is the main character, which is also a fireman. So Beatty basically tells Montag that the thing is, in reality, there are not many fires per year. Like a fire is when all the firemen go to a house and burn the house in order to destroy all the books. The house doesn't get burned actually because there is a kind of material in the walls which stop the fire. But the thing is, like, you can imagine the spectacle of the flames going across the sky. So many people leave their houses in that time to see the spectacle, or they can follow this action through the cameras that are in their houses. In that sense, BT tells Montag, well, we don't have many of those per year because it is not necessary. There is an atmosphere of fear among the population, so people won't have books hidden because they know that if they have books, they will be taken to prison, their house will be burned, and even though they will be able to live there, the shame that will create among the neighborhood will be so high that people, even after coming back from prison, won't be able to live there. So the thing is, like, the policy of fear it is fundamental to maintain the order in that society. This was written in 53, but it looks very prevalent in our times because, first of all, not too many people read books nowadays. Second of all, the huge amount of TV shows, movies that we have in the different streams like Netflix or filming, HBO or Amazon, anything else, create a trend in which focusing to read a book is more difficult. And it is interesting because Mildred, which is the wife of Montag, is the whole day watching TV, and Montag is tired about all of this sound in his house in which he can never relax. But you may wonder, well, why Montag is getting angry now with his wife? And this is another very important part of the book. The power of others people influences, how words can change your mind, can make you wake up in many different ways. Montag has been working, I think, for 10 years, if I am not wrong, as a fireman. And he had never questioned the pleasure of the midnight runs, nor the joy of watching pages consumed by flames. This is something that segregates adrenaline in the bodies of the firemen, and it's something that they really like. I mean, Guy Montag, which is the main character, he enjoyed his job. He has never questioned anything at all. Until one day, he met Clarice. Clarice is a neighbor of him. She has 17 years old and starts to question everything and starts to make Guy Montag things about life. He is telling him, asking things like, have you ever touched a dandelion, a kind of flower? Have you ever smelled the grass? Or have you ever seen the sunset? These kind of things that when I was reading, it reminds me to the song Have You Ever Seen the Rain, which is a kind of wake-up call to remember us that as humans, there are many beautiful things in nature that we are missing living in our hyper-consumist capitalist societies. Like looking at the stars in the sky during the night, going to the beach and see the sunset, walking into the mountains, see this kind of purple color of the clouds when the sun is setting and so on. And Guy Montag, that has never think about these things, start to think more and say, okay, maybe she has a point. And from that moment on, he starts to be more angry about society, about going in the underground, and that there are all the time advertisements screaming loud. There is no time to think. He is unable to remember anything, not even remember how he met his wife. And he even asked Mildred about that, like, when did we met? And Clarice doesn't remember either. So this is very important because I was in Busan in South Korea like a couple of months ago, and walking across that huge metropolis, I realized that there were all the time huge screens with advertisement, music sounding all the time, and you could not focus on anything. That only happened to me in Busan. It was something very exaggerated. I never experienced something like that in any city. This happened before I read the book, so when I was reading the book, obviously my mind was remembering that time in Busan. And even when you went to the Citizens Park in the Korean city, which is like a quiet place to, you know, read or rest, or stay with friends, or think about anything, there were some speakers across the park which, like, every 5 minutes they start to put like some loud music or to say some announcement, something like that, which it gives you the feeling that you are being monitored all the time, that you are not allowed to think beyond the kind of natural things that we do. So it is difficult to go there with a book and digest what you are reading. And this is precisely what is happening here in Fahrenheit 451. The author, Ray Bradbury, was from United States, and obviously he was drawing parallelism with his current society, the new era of capitalism, how this frenetic trend of life was destroying the kind of current activities that the humans were doing, like walking by, listening to the nature, and so on. Also in the book, they touch this idea that every inhabitant is wearing like earplugs when they are walking in the streets, and even at home to sleep. So basically they are not able to think because they are always listening to something. They never stop by to listen to the nature or just to listen to their thoughts. So this is very, I think the book is great to describe our current societies and how, if we go to work 8 hours in the office, come home, watch TV shows, we are all the time with earplugs listening to a podcast or something like that, we won't think about anything. And maybe there are months in which we do not walk across the park, we do not hear the birds singing, we do not realize how the color of the sky is changing during the day, and so on. And this is very well described in the whole book. So, apart from this character, which are Montag, the main character, Clarice, the 17-year-old neighbor, which is a fundamental character to take a Montag out from Plato's cave, which, by the way, the Plato's cave is one of the main allegories of this book, because later on, he meets some exiles from the city, people who were neglected from the town. They are forced to live outside in the upper world. And the thing is, these people, what they do is to remember one book each in order to, in the future, tell this book to other people to write it down. So let's say now we are living in Fahrenheit 451 in a time in which every person that has a book is being persecuted. So these people who are living in the forest, who love books, what they do is like, okay, I will learn about Plato's Republic. So, and this person will be called like that, Plato's Republic. The other is learning about essays of Bertrand Russell. The other about Mary Shelley Frankenstein. The other about Victor Hugo, Les Miserables. Something like that. The thing is, like, these people has to keep talking with others about the books, like a kind of storytelling exercise to never forget these stories. And when the time comes by in which they will be able to write books again without the fear to be burned, they will be able to do so. So it's a very beautiful exercise in order to save the past, save the memory to learn in the future. The power of history is very important here. And in one of the last pages of the book, Granger, which is like the lead, well, not the leader because there is no hierarchy there, but let's say the person who speaks more with Montag about that, he points how they want to do like the phoenix, that say being born and after raised from the ashes, a very interesting metaphor to this idea of the book, of burning books and going out, live again. But with a difference, the phoenix never remembers why it was born in the first place, and the human need to remember what happened before, why they were born. So they need to remember the history in order to, in the future, do not commit the same mistakes again. And precisely Granger is the person who has read Plato's Republic. Plato's Republic, in which appears the myth of the cave, in which people are just seeing shadows in the cave until the main character leaves the shadows and goes to the real realm, gets blind, and later on discovers the truth. So this is a perfect allegory of what Guy Montag is living through the book. Apart from that, there is the other, I think, important character is Faber, which is like a retired teacher, which 4 years ago he was excluded from his job And the thing is, like, he has been living in isolation until a Montag met him, and they start to draw a plan in order to overthrow the current regime. But obviously it's very difficult to do that because the power network is upon the city. Like, all the inhabitants are complicit upon this tyranny that is being carried. So obviously burning books is the most symbolic act to show the power. It's like a spectacle to showcase how people should not read books anymore. But the main problem is that people has fallen into a state of apathy, just watching TV, not caring about the outer world, and so on. For that reason, they do not want to fight. And this book obviously has reminiscence of the text of Herbert Marcuse, the Marxist political theories from the Frankfurt School, in which basically he says that in modern societies, the capital T is not terror anymore as in the past, in order to submit the masses and subjugate the people, but technology. Technology, it can create a regime of tyranny that is more subtle than in the past, but is much more effective. The power of the TV to put you at home, avoid that you go out to protest, to join with other people, this kind of idyllic space in your private sphere in which you can recluse yourself from the other world. And this is a very fundamental aspect of the book. The importance of the nature is fundamental in the book, and Granger, which is like a very wise person, is telling Montag that how in their own times they have lost touch with nature. He believes that because human beings has been building out of cities, destroying the forests, and so on, they sometimes forget that they are a small part of the world, a tiny proportion in the whole planet, and they need to realize that they are part of the earth, because otherwise, if they forget that nature exists outside, in the future they will be attacked by nature. They need to remember that nature is beautiful, but also is dangerous. You have a lot of savage creatures, you have the forest and so on, the seas, you have earthquake, you have hurricanes, and it is important to remember that, to get in touch in nature in order to not be devoured by that. Reading this book, obviously, you cannot avoid to think about climate change, about COVID-19 pandemic, which it was expanded through this kind of pushing animals in the surroundings of the cities, because humans are building all the time, and this create an increase in the pandemics and so on. It is important, as Granger said, to be aware that nature is something beautiful, but also is something that it needs to concern us. So we need to learn that we are just part of the planet, not try to conquer everything, and respect everything that is happening in the world, every sentient being. And also, I wanted to read something else before ending the episode. Obviously, I don't want to spoil the end of the book, even though it has been published like 70 years ago. But it's really interesting. Also, it's a very short book to read. The movie of 1966 also is, I think it's very well done. The 2008 didn't enjoy that much. I think doesn't take so well this point of dystopian technology society, because again, people living in that place do not feel that they are in a dictatorship, and this is very important. This is not kind of other let's say more grim kind of terror state like 1984 Orwell, in which you see that everything is gray, everything is sad and so on. Here you feel that there is fear that controls the population, and there is apathy, and this combination is which makes people not rise to revolt. Importantly, people in theory are happy, but at the same time you see how Mildred, the wife of Montag, which supposedly is very very cheerful every day watching TV, she tries to commit suicide one of the times. And when two of her friends go to their house and they start to talk about the TV shows, because this is their main conversation theme, Kate Montag points how she points the struggles that they had in their own life. And here, this is very fundamental aspect. I mean, I could make like 3 episodes of this book because it's very interesting. But the mental health problems, people here do not speak about their mental health issues, and this creates a current in which there are a lot of suicides in the city. In Fahrenheit 441, this is being explained. So, in other words, you have in theory a happy city in which people, in theory, they are very well, they have a lot of entertainment. As BT say, like, listen, we don't need books because everything is perfect. Everything is there to enjoy and so on. But below the surface, beneath the surface, you see the real problems that people are facing, and because they are not willing to talk with anybody, they are committing suicide or they are killing each other, like with the cars driving into the highway and so on. So it's a very frenzy style of society, you know. South Korea is the country in the world with more suicides every 100,000 of inhabitants. And this Fahrenheit reminds me to many parts of this country. Like, you have all the advanced technologies at your disposal, and at the same time, the huge trend of isolation, the silence upon your mental health problems is making people to feel a lot of distress in their daily life, and henceforth to creating a society which there is a grimness about it. And just to finish the episode, Granger speaks about how his grandfather touched the world in a way. He said, when my grandfather died, I did not cry. He says, I suddenly realized I wasn't crying for him at all, but for all the things he did. I cried because he will never do them again. He will never carve another piece of wood or help us raise doves and pigeons in the backyard, or play the violin the way he did, or tell us jokes the way he did. In other words, Granger emphasized the importance of each person to change the world. This follows the political theory of Hannah Arendt about the vita activa, which she covers in The Human Condition. I have spoken about that in other episodes. But the thing is, like, how every human being can change the world in different ways. Like, let's say, if you're a gardener, if you are a book writer, if you are a baker, anything else will change the world in different ways. So the important things here for Granger is to make something that will benefit the human world. So obviously the firemen are doing something that is changing the world, but is burning books. So the thing is, like, do we want to keep burning books, to keep silence the critic, to keep censorship those who are trying to provide an alternative view of reality? Or do we prefer to ally with people who want to change the world, to bring more equality, to create a society in which freedom of speech is real, in which the material conditions among the population are redistributed in order that no one suffer for poverty, hunger, or disease? What do we want to do? This book, obviously, even though it was written 70 years ago, is still very prevalent in our society. And last but not least, there is a threat of atomic war in Fahrenheit 451. A threat that is all the time being told in the radio. People do not care because they are watching TV. And spoiler alert, sorry, at the end there is a war and the city is being destroyed in Fahrenheit 451. The survivors will try to rebuild the world. It will take time. In order to do so, They will need history and cooperation. They will need people remembering the past, as they are doing in the forest, but also the mutual aid that the human people can bring together in order to build a better society. I hope that the last part happened without the atomic war, which is a threat that is happening in our time, and hopefully this will never be fulfilled as it happened in the novel of Ray Bradbury, Fahrenheit 451.